Floods in southern China have triggered an unusual and dangerous emergency. Around 900 snakes, including venomous cobras.
July 13th, 2026, southern China. The water is rising in the dark, and it's not just water, it's Guangxi right now, and people trapped inside flooded homes are describing something far worse than a normal disaster. They are sharing space with snakes, hundreds of them, loose, swimming, hiding in furniture, curled up in places where children sleep. This is not a rumor spreading online. This is a real documented consequence of the flooding unleashed by Typhoon Maysak, and it is turning an already brutal disaster into something that sounds almost too strange, too frightening to be true. Here's how it started. Typhoon Maysak made landfall on Hainan Island on July the 3rd, then pushed inland into Guangxi, dumping catastrophic rainfall across the region for days without stopping. Some of the hardest hit areas saw rainfall totals exceeding 900 millimeters. That's close to 3 feet of rain hammering down on ground that had nowhere left to drain. Rivers surged past warning levels, reservoirs filled beyond capacity, and in the city of Hangzhou, under Nanning's jurisdiction, the Liulan Reservoir gave way, sending a wall of water crashing into homes and streets below. More than 130,000 people have been evacuated across the region. Over 300,000 have been affected in some way, and the death toll, officials confirm, continues to climb. But somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, in a small village caught in the flood's path, there was a commercial snake breeding farm. And when the floodwaters surged through, they didn't just destroy the property, they tore open the enclosures. Hundreds of snakes were swept out into the rising water, carried directly into the same streets, the same homes, the same rooftops where terrified residents were already fighting just to stay alive. Picture that for a second. You're standing on your roof, or huddled on a second floor, watching muddy water climb higher by the hour, waiting for a rescue boat or a drone that might not reach you in time. And now, somewhere below you, in that same brown water, there are snakes, swimming, displaced, just as desperate to find dry ground as you are. Local reports out of the region confirmed the snake farm breach, and Chinese outlet Beijing News reported that a woman in the area died after being bitten by one of the escaped snakes. Let that sink in. In the middle of a flood disaster that was already killing people through drowning, collapsing buildings, and structural failures, this region now had an entirely separate, entirely unexpected way for people to lose their lives. This is the part of the story that almost nobody saw coming. Flood planners prepare for water. They prepare for structural failure, power outages, contaminated drinking supplies, disease outbreaks after the water recedes. But snake breeding operations sit quietly all across rural China, often positioned in flood-prone lowland areas because that's where the cheap land is, that's where the water table supports the operation. Nobody plans for the moment when a flood doesn't just destroy an enclosure, it turns loose an army of venomous animals directly into a disaster zone already stretched to its breaking point. And here's what makes it worse. Floodwater does not just carry snakes to the surface, it displaces every animal that normally stays hidden. Rodents flee their burrows, insects swarm to any dry surface they can find, and snakes, driven out of their natural hiding spots by rising water, do exactly what any animal does when its home floods. They look for the nearest high ground, which in a flooded village means rooftops, windowsills, furniture inside people's homes, the very same places where stranded residents are sheltering while they wait for rescue. Local residents described wading through their own homes, unable to see beneath the murky floodwater, with no way of knowing what might be moving just beneath the surface near their feet. Some described finding snakes curled up in dry corners of rooms they thought were safe. Emergency workers, already stretched thin, trying to reach tens of thousands of stranded people by boat and by drone, are now also fielding reports of snake sightings in evacuation zones, adding one more layer of danger to rescue operations that were already racing against the clock. And remember, this is happening while the broader flood emergency is still unfolding. Authorities in Nanning raised the flood emergency response to its highest alert level. Multiple reservoirs across the region, not just Liulan, have overtopped or breached under the pressure of Maysak's relentless rainfall. Rescue crews have deployed thousands of boats and drones, racing to reach stranded villages where roads are impassable and floodwater has cut off entire communities. Drone teams have flown people to safety off rooftops and stranded vehicles. Volunteers have driven overnight from provinces hundreds of kilometers away just to bring extra boats and extra hands to the disaster zone. It is an enormous, coordinated effort. And now, on top of everything else these rescue teams are dealing with, they have to account for the possibility that the next person they pull from floodwater might already be dealing with a snake bite, with no easy way to get anti-venom to somewhere this remote, this quickly. Local authorities have moved to try to control the situation, warning residents to be cautious in flooded areas and advising people to avoid wading through standing water wherever possible. But when your entire village is underwater and rescue boats can only reach so many people at once, avoid the water is not always something people can actually do. For many residents, there was no dry alternative. The water was already inside their homes before they had time to react. And this disaster is not finished. Meteorologists are warning that the remnants of Maysak will continue to dump rain across Guangxi for days to come, keeping already strained reservoirs under pressure and keeping floodwaters high in areas that have not yet had a chance to recede. Meanwhile, a second storm, Typhoon Bavi, has been gathering strength in the western Pacific, threatening to bring yet another wave of destructive rainfall to China's eastern coast in the days ahead. If floodwaters remain high across Guangxi while a second major storm approaches, the conditions that displaced those snakes in the first place, standing water, submerged buildings, ruined enclosures, are not going away anytime soon. Which raises an unsettling question that officials in the region are almost certainly asking right now. How many other agricultural operations across the flood zone, snake farms or otherwise, are sitting in the path of water that is not yet crested? This is the reality of disasters that most people never think about until they're already living through one. It's easy to picture a flood as simply water rising and then receding, but floods do not respect boundaries. They tear open whatever stands in their path, and in doing so, they release everything that was contained inside. Chemical storage facilities, livestock enclosures, sewage systems, and yes, in this case, a facility full of snakes, suddenly with nowhere to go but straight into the same water where people are fighting to survive. Officials have not released an exact count of how many snakes escaped, and it's likely nobody will ever have a precise number since floodwater scatters animals across a wide, chaotic area that is difficult to fully search, even after the water recedes. What is confirmed is that residents in the affected village encountered live snakes in flooded homes and streets, that at least one death has been linked to a snake bite during the crisis, and that this unusual danger emerged directly out of the same catastrophic rainfall event that has already displaced hundreds of thousands of people and destroyed reservoirs across the region. So, as rescue crews continue working around the clock, racing to reach stranded families before the next wave of rain arrives, they are now navigating a flood zone where the water itself has become only part of the danger. Somewhere in that murky brown water, moving silently beneath the surface, are displaced animals with nowhere else to go, in the same streets where children are being carried to safety and families are waiting on rooftops for a boat that might not come in time. This story is still developing. Officials in Guangxi are continuing rescue and recovery operations as floodwaters remain dangerously high in multiple areas, and forecasters are still tracking exactly where Typhoon Bavi will make landfall next. If you want to stay ahead of this as new details come in, the next reservoir under strain, the next community facing evacuation, and what happens when Bavi finally makes its move, make sure you're subscribed, because I'll be covering every update the moment new information comes through. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.